Hi, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Adrienne.
And this is Scandal Sheets. Hello, and welcome to Scandal Sheets, the podcast dedicated to exposing the notorious people and places of the past. I am your host, Caroline.
And I'm Adrienne.
And today we are going to get creeptastic and
Key West.
And go to Key West as well and talk about the very notorious Carl Tanzler. It is Tanzler.
Not Tanzler.
Not Tanzler.
Good to know.
Like how Caroline would say it. Carl Tanzler. Actually, I would just say Tanzler in my southern accent.
I'm surprised that it's German and you didn't say it. I feel like you only mispronounce French stuff.
I said Tanzler.
I would have said Tanzler.
Oh, yeah. So there. Yeah.
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 Anyway.
I clearly excel at German. So, yeah. Anywho, if you don't know about this guy, you are in for a treat.
Well,
maybe. I would suggest not listening to this with your dinner.
Probably not.
No, not a good idea. So let's just jump on in there.
Okay.
And get down with this thing. Carl Tanzler was born in 1877 in Dresden, Germany. Very little is known about his early life, except for details published in his autobiography. Considering that you will soon find out that he had a very rich fantasy life, we should take everything that he says with a grain of salt.
Probably so.
However.
Oh, autobiography, meaning he
wrote it.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Yeah. So we know that in 1920, he was going by the name Georg Carl Tanzler.
Why did he add that?
Why did he go by that name?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot about this man that I just don't know about.
Did he give himself a title?
Yes, he did. We'll get there eventually. Okay. So that name, Georg Carl Tanzler, appeared on his wedding certificate. So that's kind of how we know what he legit was named, at least what we think.
Okay.
He wrote in his autobiography that he was born in his family's townhouse in Dresden, but grew up at their villa in the country. Yes.
Congratulations.
Right. Which was haunted.
Oh.
By one of his ancestors named the Countess Anna Constantia von Casel.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the defining moments of his life was when Countess Anna visited him in a dream and showed him the woman who would be his one true love. And it so happens that this vision was of a exotic looking dark haired woman. But waiting on true love can be hard. He later revealed in his autobiography that he ended up in Australia just before the outbreak of World War I. Of course, being German in a British colony or a British country, it was not a good, place to be.
Okay.
So he was detained by the British.
He went from Germany to Australia?
Yes, apparently. Once again, this is what he wrote in his autobiography. Okay. So who knows? He was supposedly placed in an internment camp.
Oh.
And then later sent to a place called Trial Bay, which apparently had this castle-like prison on the cliffs.
Oh.
Sounds rather magical, actually.
Still in Australia.
It's still in Australia.
Okay.
After the war, Carl was released and shipped to Holland, where he set out across what was left of Germany in hopes of locating his mother. When he found her, he stayed with her for a while and experienced the deprivations of a war-torn country. His mother eventually suggested that he immigrate to Florida, which was where his sister had gone before the war.
All the weirdos go.
Right. All the weirdos go to Florida. But Carl was waylaid by the comforts of marriage. In 1920, he married the solidly built and very practical Doris Anna Schaefer.
Okay.
Who was 12 years younger than him. 12 years younger is actually not that bad in our universe.
It's not. No, it's not. It's way better than it could be.
The couple would go on to have 2 children together. Aisha was born in 1922 and Clarissa in 1924. In 1926, Carl decided it was time to join his sister in the land of opportunity, also
Florida.
known as Zephyr Hills, Florida. The plan was for him to stake out a new life and send for his wife and children. So he sets out for the Sunshine State, which of course would take a while. He left from Rotterdam and landed in Cuba first. He loved Havana and apparently left with some sadness.
Why didn't he just stay there?
I don't. Well, I mean, I guess there's no connection there. His sister is in Zephyr Hills, so that's where he's supposed to go.
Well, he ended up with a piece of Cuba anyway.
Right. So he landed in Key West, which he didn't like as much as Cuba, and then had to catch a train to Miami, and then another train to Zephyr Hills. What he did for the next year, we don't know, but he did send for his wife and children, who arrived in 1927. But things apparently did not go well upon their arrival, because soon after, Carl took off and left them in Zephyr Hills. So I hear they have really good water, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about the only thing
I hear that too.
that I can think of to do in Zephyr Hills is drink water, which actually might do me good since I never drink enough. Anywho, Carl takes off and goes back to Key West, where he took a job at the Marine Hospital as the guy who cleans up the operating theater after surgery.
Oh.
Yeah. But with a bit of ingenuity, he soon convinced the head doctor that he had enough experience to run the X-ray machine.
But he didn't have any
experience,
degree to do that.
Well, he said that he had 9 university degrees from the University of Leipzig.
You can't. I mean, if you're going to tell a lie, you could just say, yes, I have a degree. Because if you say 9, that sounds a little bit fishy, right?
Yeah, gilding the lily. Man, it must have been wonderful to live in the age before background checks.
Right?
Could do anything you wanted to.
Pretty much.
He also insisted to everyone that he was really the Count Karl Tanzler von Casel. And he actually...
So he's been promoted to Count.
Yeah, he's been promoted. And he actually, when he finally was a naturalized citizen, that's what his paperwork said.
Count.
So, yes. Good job, America, on the whole fact-checking, people.
Yeah.
Becoming
who
naturalized.
Who are you going to ask?
Yeah. I mean, you would think they would write to Germany and be like, hey.
Nah.
But then again, Germany had changed a lot since 1877 when he was born. So, nonetheless, he staked out this little kingdom in the X-ray department of the hospital. According to him,
This is the Navy hospital?
They called it the Marine Hospital. So I'm assuming this is the Navy hospital?
No, it's different.
It's different? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Wow. Multiple hospitals for military.
Because I thought that he worked in the Naval Hospital. The Marine Hospital is cool.
Oh, well then.
It's called the Truman Annex.
Yeah.
It's really lovely. It's where it's called Little White House. You can tour it. Anyway, there's a bunch of cool historic stuff in that district.
Oh, I have heard about the Little White House. So it's there. Okay.
Yeah. I've only been once. Since I've been back to Key West, I visited the Little White House on my first trip there, but that was over 10 years ago. So I haven't been back in subsequent trips.
Okay.
But I would go. If I went again, I would want to go.
So in November of 1930, Carl met Elena Milagro Ollas Mesa. So Elena was born in Florida in 1910 to Cuban immigrants. Her father, Francisco, was a cigar maker, which apparently was not the most profitable work because I found several different addresses for the family over a decade just looking in the city directories. We have photos of Elena as a teenager and later as a young bride that prove that she was very beautiful. She was described as exuberant and full of life, even though the Great Depression had reduced the circumstances of her family. She apparently was an accomplished singer and often had gigs at the San Carlos Theater, which is a super cool building that's still there in Key West. Is it Spanish Revival?
It is. It was first built in, I think, the 1870s. The San Carlos Institute was founded in 1871. It was named after Cuba's Seminario San Carlos, a place of higher learning renowned for its academic excellence. And the education and preservation of cultural values were the Institute's primary missions. Classes were taught in English and Spanish to children of all races. The San Carlos thus became one of the nation's first bilingual and integrated schools. So this is from the actual San Carlos website, by the way. It moved to larger quarters on Fleming Street in 1884, but that building burned to the ground in the 1886 fire that destroyed much of Key West. Then the San Carlos was rebuilt on a lot on Duval Street in 1890, and that is where it is today. Lots of really important things happened there as well. Exiles from Cuba gathered there May 20th in 1902 to celebrate Cuba's independence. And unfortunately, in the 1919 hurricane, devastated Key West, and efforts were made to rebuild the San Carlos. So they were able to get money to rebuild it from the Republic of Cuba, and Francisco Centurion, one of Cuba's most prominent architects, designed what is there now. It's a 2-story masonry building that incorporates elements of Cuba's architecture: spacious rooms, high ceilings, graceful curves and arches, marble stairways, louvered windows, handcrafted mosaics, and floors of checkered Cuban tile. The building opened October 10th, 1924. It was a magnificent edifice and referred to by many as the Jewel of Key West. And I've been in it. It's really, really a stunning space. When the communists seized power in Cuba in 1959, they were no longer willing or able to give money to maintain the building, and it fell into disrepair, and the school closed its doors in 1973, after which the building was condemned. It stayed closed for almost 20 years. Sadly, many of the San Carlos's books and records were lost to the elements or to vagrants who sought shelter in the building. Part of its facade collapsed in 1981 and injured someone on the sidewalk, and people in the town called for the building's demolition, but others wanted to restore it. So Cuban residents of both Key West and Miami rallied to stop commercial development of the property. The courts ruled against them. In 1985, there was an effort to save the San Carlos as a Cuban historical landmark, and the supporters of preservation appealed to Florida's Hispanic Commission. The property was saved as a Cuban heritage center, and now it's lovely. So a beautifully restored San Carlos Institute opened on January 4th, 1992, exactly 100 years from the day when Jose Marti delivered his first address at the Institute.
And I think Jose Marti was a sort of a freedom fighter or something like that.
Yeah. And so ever since 1992 to currently, it's open for events and tours and educational stuff, and it's really a beautiful building. It still needs a bit of love because it suffers from the damp climate of Florida and the salt air and stuff, but it's certainly a gem of Duval Street.
So at the age of 18, Elena married Luis Mesa in February of 1929. Elena also went by the name Helen, and she actually appears as Helen Mesa in the 1930 census when I looked her up.
Did she intentionally Americanize her?
Apparently, yeah. Like her father was Francisco, but he went by Frank.
Oh.
Yeah, so... There was a little bit of Anglicization there. The couple actually ended up moving in with the Mesa family, which included Luis's father, mother, and 6 brothers, and her mother, and the mother's father as well.
So a grandfather?
The grandfather, yeah.
I think that's just what you did.
Yeah, well, on top of that, the Hoyos family, which included her father, Francisco, her mother, Aurora, and her 2 sisters, Florinda and Celia, moved in with the family as well. So there were like 12 adults under one roof.
And what was probably a little house.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm all for family togetherness, but that's
too much.
a bit, yeah. Can you imagine being newlywed and living under the same roof as your parents and your in-laws? No. So according to the 1930 census, they all lived at 1018 Grinnell Street, which I Googled, of course. And
it's a block and a half from the cemetery, on the south side of the cemetery.
So... yeah, I feel like that house that's there now is possibly new.
I think Yeah, I think where they would have lived was probably not that one.
Yeah.
That little tiny
but
one-story masonry house.
Yeah, that sits so far back from the street.